If you're seeing things, that's you. I look normal. I've got a great story today. We just keep rolling out more and better news about psychedelics. Microdosing and tripping on mushrooms is on the rise in the U.S. Psychedelics have entered the mainstream in a big way. Investors have staked billions on potential medical treatment. Scientific research has skyrocketed, and public sentiment signals growing acceptance. And yet, the major source of data on drug use have big gaps when it comes to psychedelics, making it hard to gauge exactly how consumption is changing and in what ways. Two reports out this week offer some much-needed data points on the public's psychoactive preferences. Whether they suggest that psilocybin-containing mushrooms are now the most popular drug of choice. Many people are opting to microdose, consume a fraction of the usual dose, rather than taking a full trip, because they're scared what will get. We know that microdosing has become a cultural phenomenon, but all the surveys on drug use don't ask about dosing. Eric Leas, an epidemiologist at the University of California, his research was published Friday in the Journal of American Health. That study tracked internet search history on microdosing, a proxy for public interest, finding about a 1,250% increase since 2015. And searches for psilocybin started to outpace LSD in 2019. Meanwhile, a separate report from the nonpartisan RAND Corporation estimates that about 3% of the American public, approximately 8 million adults, have used psilocybin in the past year, making the most popular hallucinogen in 2023. The fact that psilocybin use eclipsed other popular psychedelics came as a surprise. RAND. And the runner-up here was MDMA, or ecstasy or Molly, at over just 1%, followed closely by LSD. Hard to run on LSD, so I could see LSD coming in third. The report was based on a nationally representative survey of about 4,000 people and explores the policy implications of changing attitudes around psychedelics. The impact of decriminalization on microdosing. Nearly half of those who tried psilocybin in the past year said they had elected to microdose, a trend that has caught on in many circles, including tech workers and suburban moms. While there's no universal definition for microdosing, most people consider it to be about a 10th to a 20th of a full dose. Some users dabble in mushrooms. Majority of psilocybin microdosers in the past year said they'd taken the drug on just 1 or 2 occasions, while about 11% they'd taken the substance more than 6 days in a year. More than half said they consumed whole, fresh, or dried mushrooms. Close to a quarter took it in a processed form like a chocolate bar, and about 14% imbibed a tea or a drink. The uptick in online curiosity around microdosing correlates with changes in the law or policy related to both cannabis and psychedelics. Lamar researches trend in drug use in New York City, a population that he considers a bellwether for change in the general population, and says he found that psilocybin use has increased a lot, more than most other drugs. I think that's interesting because I usually think of ecstasy and ketamine. I never thought of shrooms as being a big party drug. A study published several years ago estimates that about 5.5 million adults had used hallucinogens in 2018, and LSD use in all age groups had risen from 1% to 4% since 2002. However, overall research has not caught up with the blossoming of public enthusiasm and media coverage. Not only does the data collected by the federal government not contain granular information of psychedelics, but for whatever reason, it doesn't explicitly ask whether people have used psilocybin recently. A really important piece of information to have in terms of assessing the size of the market, beginning to think about some of the health consequences, whether it would be the benefits or the risks. Recent review of the evidence suggests microdosing may improve mood and cognition, and that the drug is safe in this context. However, others who have analyzed the data say it's premature to draw any conclusions about the efficacy or safety of microdosing. Homer believes the U.S. has reached an inflection point on psychedelics as some states and localities take various approaches to loosen laws and policies on the substances which remain illegal under federal law. The market for psychedelics is quite different from cannabis. Smaller and primarily driven by infrequent users, present company accepted. Kilmer does see clear parallels in how the situation is starting to roll out. He says, this reminds me a lot of where we were in 2012 with cannabis. Now is the time for the federal government to decide if they want to get involved and shape what these state markets look like, or do they want to stand on the sidelines and watch it? It's a really interesting story, and I'm going to hold my own editorialization for all you guys to jump in, and I'll get in there what I fit in. This is Matthew St. Germain on the 4th of July for the High at 9 News. What do you guys think about this story?
Sounds like, man, I'm still tripping off of how you look, bro.
Thank you. I finally managed to get the fractals out of my brain and onto my skin.
I love that. I love that you're projecting right now.
Yeah.
It's
and
fantastic.
for only $5,000, I can show you how to do it too. Email in the chat.
Do you take Trump NFTs as currency?
No, sir. I will. I would take a pair of those shoes in trade, though, Rico. I actually like the gold shoes quite a bit. I was trying to coach Jason to buy them.
Yeah, don't worry.
So back to the story, though. I think it's great that people are using psychedelics. I think especially mushrooms really going to help us as a species. That being said, I'm seeing a really alarming trend of people, tech workers, and people who are, fairly well-known or somewhat well-known in the media sphere, advocating microdosing as a productivity enhancer. Mm-hmm. I think that we need to stay away from and be very wary of using psychedelics as productivity enhancers or as the soma that Aldous Huxley spoke about in A Brave New World. There's a real danger of using these substances in such a way as to kind of spackle over the economic and racial and ethnic disparities in this country and the world. Mm-hmm. And while I think microdosing is great for people's brain health to get people off of other, drugs that are a problem like cigarettes and alcohol, only microdosing risks missing the message. So I just took a really high dose psilocybin trip this weekend. I was once again confronted with the vision of who we are, where we are going in this ocean of chaos, and the fact that if we do not come together as a species soon, we are going to ruin the life support systems of this planet, no longer be able to navigate space together. What we're really trying to do here, I would posit, is have fun. And the way we have fun is by taking care of our environment and each other, because if we are not doing that, it's pretty much impossible. If you don't clean your house, you don't pay your bills, you're going to have a clean house or a party, therefore you're not going to. It's very important for people to take doses of psychedelics that disturb their ego and their consciousness and allow messages in the galactic heart of the universe.
I want
Come together
somebody...
as a human family. We need to save and protect our life support systems. We need to give Jason Beck a chance to answer.
So Matthew St. Germain, let me just kind of put this summaries because I think I personally agree with this. You're saying that people should not be microdosing because it serves pretty much no purpose for the most part, and that people should be taking in spurts of times larger doses to actually feel the full effects of the plant or the entheogen. And have that more spiritual connection as opposed to just, I'm so productive when I'm microdosing. Am I correct on this?
So what I think is we should get away from the either or dichotomy and we should turn to the improv model of the yes and. Mm-hmm. I think microdosing is great, but I think that it should not be a substitute or done in lieu of occasional macrodose. I think a lot of people who are microdosing for productivity are a little bit afraid, and I think that we need to continue to find a framework that isn't contingent on people paying thousands of dollars to contact psychedelic mentors and big brothers and sisters, wherein we can all have these trips, but those of us that may be more afraid of being confronted by our ego or being out of control can have a safe container, and we can also connect and contact with these consciousnesses and these intelligences, and yet still feel like we're okay, and somebody may have a blanket, a glass of water, an apple, and a hug for it.
Fair.
What would all the fake shamans call themselves then?
Trip sitters.
Republicans?
No, they wouldn't.
Yeah, and the whole thing about fake shamans is this: there's a ton of pushback, and I understand, and I've been on a journey with this myself as somebody of several races who is white appearing. And I was set to rights by John Trudell, who was one of the leaders of the American Indian movement. And what John Trudell elucidated for me is something I think is missing from a lot of the talks on social equity, equality, cultural appropriation, and what's going on here, which is that the Europeans were subjugated by the Romans and the Roman Catholic Church for over 500 years. They were tortured. The drum, the tattoo, the dreadlocks, ties to healing and other plants were all taken away under fear of being burnt to death, of having your skin peeled off. And what happens is that the European races were basically turned in the police guard dogs for the Roman Catholic Church and those that wish to keep class stratification and basically be the rulers of the world forever. And what they did is once they perfected it against the Europeans, they then scaled it out like any good corporation around the rest of the world. And so what you have is a lot of white-appearing people who understand that the plastic bullshit culture that we've been given by this Abrahamic control structure is not real. They begin to reach back and understand that they're tied to the earth, that the drum is the heartbeat that's inside of all of us. A lot of times they begin to be attracted to other indigenous cultures, and the way that they approach because of their own cultural deconditioning may look very upsetting to people. I think that the more and more we need to realize that we were all indigenous at one point. We all had the drum. We all had the dreadlock. We are one human family. None of us is divided. And the only way for those of us who wish to see something approaching paradise or heaven on earth to bring this together is to build bridges from our commonality. Again, realize that we are a one human family. That is the way we're going to have to get it back together. So what I would say is, number one, microdosing is great. Number two, macrodosing is fucking amazing. Number three, let's not worry about pointing fingers at fake shamans as much as teaching those people how to connect to mushrooms and each other in a way that is in congruence with their sincerity and helps other people to feel well. So instead of ridiculing and pointing a finger, let's use these as teachable moments to bring everybody in the fold and try to show everybody how to do it right. And again, look at my face. I do a ton of drugs. Who knows what I'm talking about?
All right. So as somebody who maybe doesn't look as green as you, but has definitely been down quite a few roads myself, I have a question for you, Matthew. So yeah, people who are fake shamans and are well-intentioned, those definitely exist. There are also people who, just like when cannabis first started rolling out, right, came to find their identity for a look-at-me moment, for, self-enrichment, for money, for whatever. I mean, there are people that will charge you a tremendous amount of money to spin you up on a bunch of drugs and just kind of hang out with you with no basis for doing that, with nothing other than...
You're supporting their drugs when they do that.
Self-funding, right? Mm-hmm. They're trying to make money. What do you
I'm going to do
about
drugs
that?
to you, and you're going to pay me.
Do you think that that's called a drug dealer? Do you think that there is a way to enlighten them, or do you think that some people are just still those selfish? What do we do? Is it like old school lot justice? And I
think that's a great point, Jenny. Jenny, I think that's a great point, and I think one of the things that's often missing in this talk is that we're literally under the grips of a 10,000-year-old system of for-profit capitalism and class stratification. Class stratification means is the people at the top have been using religion, law, and violent force to remain at the top and not allow other people to rise through this system and take part in wealth distribution and wealth generation. And I think that this is a very nuanced talk and something we may not be able to solve in a couple minutes, but capitalism makes all of our efforts appear insincere at some level. I can sit and take apart every single person on this panel, myself included, show some way how something that we have done is a grab for money and therefore is insincere. And what we really need to do is we need to continue to come together, fight this capitalist system, realize that capitalism and the free market are not the same. And capitalism is not some bulwark against communism, and communism is not the only other possibility other than capitalism on this planet. Furthermore, all communism really means everybody working, everybody sharing, everybody caring for each other.
Community.
Until some point that we don't have to pay 2/3 of our rent to the landlords and that other third for food to just barely survive inside if we wish. There's not going to be a way for any of us to be completely 100% sincere unless we're living out on BLM land or on an uninhabited island somewhere, foraging for all of our food and making our clothes out of the plants and animals we kill. I think the major thing we need to do is we need to excuse ourselves of our bad actions, at the same time holding people accountable, watching out for people who are taking advantage of other people, and continuing to create communities, consensus, communication, so that we can all begin to teach and learn and operate at a higher level. I think it's a difficult thing. I think it's moving somewhere between a glacial speed and the speed of maybe a redwood tree growing. I don't think it's something that's moving at light speed, and it's going to be a process. I really appreciate your highlighting that, because it is a big problem. And the biggest problem is people, again, want to reach for that safety. And there's so many people. This is another thing. There's so many people who want to just give away their power to feel safe and have all the answers given to them. That's why so many people go to church, or are attracted to gurus, or are pulled into cults, or love Donald Trump. It's so much easier to give your power away to somebody who poses as all-knowing and more powerful than you, because then you don't have to worry about who are we and where are we going in this ocean of chaos, and what happens to me when I die, and what am I going to do when I am dead and can't protect or care for my family? Who is going to take care of them? And there are all these unknowns that really take a lot of bravery to look at as an adult and to accept that you really don't have an answer for that. And so again, it's going to take being brave enough, look at the answers and maybe not even have them, but still navigate forward. And the rest of us help and call out those people who are bad actors and who are trying to take advantage of people to take their money, have sex with them in some way that is taking away their power. Really urge people to take their power back. In a fucking adult and be like, look, you're going to fucking die someday, and no one can actually tell you what's going to happen. And that's just the deal.
Right.
But you can either be destroyed by that information, or you can use that information to day and live your best day and be the best version of yourself that you can, that when you are on your deathbed looking back, have as little regrets as possible, and you can say, fuck yeah, I rock this. I'll tell you something for what it's worth.
Be best.
No way I can prove it. I've done enough fucking DMT to know there's no such thing as birth and death. This is a dance or an illusion or a video game, whatever you want to call it. We can all relax that there is nothing we can be unholy or out of congruence with the universe. We will exist forever, though the tiny personality, the Saint Germain, Jason Beck, the Yarrow Kubrin, etc., will not live past this physical incarnation. Soul, the spirit, the energy, and the matter that makes us has always existed and will always exist in this beautiful toroid fractal of energy, light, and love. I love you guys. Happy 4th of July.
Look at that.
Well, I've been practicing law for a long time, and I must not be meeting all these people that Matthew is hopeful are going to come to save us, because a significant proportion of our population is greedy. They're ignorant of so many things, and they don't want to know. And I don't know how we break through that. I mean, our firm has clients that are getting into the psychedelics game. And when you go to an allopathic physician and they're willing to throw, antidepressants at you, serotonin and dopamine manipulators without any thought, I tell people, hey, microdosing is safer and more effective for people with mild to moderate depression than any of these goddamn drugs they want to throw at you. There's a starting point. But our systems have trapped us, Matthew, and that is part of the problem, because even if you recognize you're in this vortex, how do you get to the edge and get the hell off of it? I mean, I've taken full dose psychedelics many times in my career, and my career, and I think I understand what you're talking about. I've also been in the courtroom, had to deal with people who are fucking dumb as a box of rocks and don't care. They're greedy. Their personality type is they are not agreeable. They're dangerous. They're sociopathic. They don't care. And our society is so higgledy-piggledy right now about mental health. Nobody seems to want to pay attention to mental health anymore. They're just letting us all out there fluttering around. And the medical community just wants to put you on chemicals that are unproven. And every entheogenic I'm aware of, including ergot, where they got LSD, has been around for a minute. They've been well.
I agree, Dale. Dale, I agree. And please don't look at. I'm a bit of a visionary, and so what I do is I have the good fortune of contacting intelligences that give me glimpses of futures that we could live should we choose to navigate there. Don't take my optimism for a statement that this is going to be a quick ride. I don't think it is. What I would offer is that, well, like yourself and myself and present company, we are actually a demonstration of what you do, because what you do is you get the message, you see the vision in the future that you need to work towards, you maintain your presence in the three-dimensional reality, you maintain your discipline, you do the dishes, tie your shoes, wash your ass, and then you begin to work for other people, and you begin to examine yourself and determine a set of first principles, and then act and navigate according to those first principles in the world. Know that this may be 10 years, it may be 100 years, it may be 1,000 years. There is a point in the future coming, if we can manage to not nuke ourselves, wherein we can teach each other how to care for each other. We can soothe these traumas by creating more communities. We can heal ourselves and make ourselves whole. An example I would give you is in the 1780s, there was a king in France. And there had always been a king in France. For as long as you had ever lived, and all of your generations going back, there was always a king. And then the next day, there was no king in France, and there has never since been a king in France. Things can change on a dime, whether the majority of us can. I would say is number one, we need to work on the homeless population. Those people are primarily orphans and people who have been traumatized in childhood through sexual or violent physical abuse. We need to show them compassion and bring them back into the fold. And that example will be ways that we can show compassion to these other people who are demonstrating psychopathic and sociopathic tendencies, or often than not because of genetic damage or predisposition, but again, because of traumas, people not caring for them in their youth. Or that we can care for people and at the same time protect ourselves and our communities from them. Even in protecting our communities, we treat those people that we decide to place apart in prisons or other programs with compassion and with care in order to inculcate them back in the fold. What I know of people that I can see who have been to jail or had mental health problems is when they have been shown care, they have been educated, they have been given an opportunity to take part in society in a way that is positive and proactive. Majority of them tend to do so because they want to be included, want to be looked at as good, want to help. Again, I don't think this is an overnight process. I invite everybody here listening. I think what we do is we start off again by tying our shoes and washing our ass and doing the dishes and sweeping the floor. Next thing we do, we realize everybody's going through it today, and we make an extra effort to smile and help anyone we can in a way that still protects ourselves and allow us to help ourselves. If each one of us does that, it begins to ripple and spread like the butterfly effect, where there are more help, there are more smiles, there's more positivity and engagement in our planet. It is not going to be easy. It will be fun sometimes. What the fuck else are we going to do here? Are we going to just draw lines in the sand and begin murdering each other? Because we've been doing that for at least the last 10,000 years, and it doesn't seem to be helping.
That would be my prediction. That would be my prediction.
You're pleasant, and I'm a bitch, I guess.
Rico, we need to get to Yarrow.
Yeah, anybody who visits MSG up north, make sure you ask which well they got the water from.
Right.
You might end up looking like him. But let's keep it rolling here.